Hello guys, today we are back looking at the MAN truck here. Today we're going to try and put a steering axle on the front, because if you remember in the last video we put the 4 drive motors in the rear of the model here, and we 3D printed our little wheels and kind of gearbox, what do you call it, a gearbox holder or frame I suppose. So we've all that printed, but we're still missing a steering axle at the front. So this truck didn't actually come with a steering axle, it came with a solid axle like this one. And if you remember from the last video, I had lost one of the tyres, so I've stolen the tyre from this wheel here. And what we're going to do is take one of these Siku steering axles. It's off the Scania truck, as you can probably see on the wheel there, Scania is written on it. But I'm just going to take that and install it in the front of this model, because basically it has everything we want, and it's probably the easiest option we're going to have. It seems to be around about the right size, so if I hold this one on top, not far off, so I think it'll work well enough, and it fits okay in under the model. I'll show you now. So we're looking in on the bottom of the cab here. This is the old axle that used to be in there, so it would have went in there, and we're going to replace it with this one. I think I will arrange it this kind of orientation, with this part facing forward, and I'll put my servo either above the axle or in front of the axle, and hopefully that'll give us enough control over the axle. Now you can see it's hitting on the back here, so if we get the axle where we want it, we'll probably need to remove this piece from the back here, and the same on the other side. But I think other than that we'll probably get away with it. I'll try to avoid removing this piece here if I can, and I think we'll be okay at the top there, but we'll probably have to take about that much out of the back here to get it in there nice and tidy. So that's going to be the first thing we have to do. Alright, well, this mud flap piece turned out to be a little bit too much of an inconvenience, so I decided to just cut it straight off. So now we can get our axle in and just move it back slightly, and that'll allow our steering to move perfectly freely. So I think that was the best option that we had there. So the next plan I have then is to just extend the little notch that originally housed the axle to the width of this bar here, and just sit it into it to see what it looks like at that height. If that's high enough, then we'll just leave it like that. I'll mount it there, but it's quite possible we need to go in a bit further, because this axle might be slightly deeper than the other. Or we could sit it in either way, like we could put it in that way, take advantage of the little bit of a depth maybe. Maybe not, it doesn't really work like that. It's probably easier to get it in on the flat end rather than the end with the curves on it. But we'll see what happens when we widen it out. There's the front axle in now. I didn't raise the height of it in any way. All I did was widen the little gap that was already there for the existing axle, and it looks like it's leveled out fairly perfectly with our rear wheels there, so I'm quite happy with that. And I think I'm going to go with that height. I don't think I'm going to adjust it anymore, because the more I mess with it, the more the axle is going to go away from perfect. So at the minute we haven't modified where the original axle was, so it should be just perfectly square in there. If we put our cab on, you can see that our wheels can move freely now, so that's pretty ideal, I would say. Here's the servo I'm going to try for the steering. Just one of those 3.7 gram servos, the cheap ones we get on eBay, ones I pretty much use in everything, so should do fine for this. I drilled a few holes here and just cut it into rectangular shape so that our servo will fit in here. Then our steering rack is going to go in there. I'll just modify this so that I can put a connecting rod between the servo and our new steering rack. Okay, we'll have to turn the steering axle around so that this little connecting bar here is facing the rear of the model now. That's because this little piece that screws the cab in place, if I had it the other way around I was going to be hitting that, so I decided to stick it in that way instead. So I have it just connected up with a paper clip, same as we usually do. It's the simplest and cheapest way to do it really, to get it connected. So that's what we did, and I think that's fairly good. I need to set the servo limits on the code there, but that seems pretty ideal. I do need to mount this permanently in place. Not quite sure how I'm going to do that yet, but I'll have to come up with something. Maybe I'll 3D print something to replace this piece that will sit up here and hook into these two screws. But for now, that's where we are. Okay, we'll have it all back together now. You can see I've just used this little wire to connect the servo to this servo wire. I just had an end of a servo cable there that I soldered in, so obviously they're both female connections. I just used this to connect it. Our motors are just connected up the same way they were in the last video, and we have our wire for a battery, so this should be good to go for a little test drive. And what I'm going to do is just end this video here, and in a couple of days I'll upload one where we bring it around the farm scenery and see how manoeuvrable it is on the roads, try and reverse it into a couple of tight spaces maybe, and see just generally what way it's going to perform. Because with our independent drive on these wheels, I'd expect we should have good steering, but until we get it out and actually test it, it's very hard to know. Most of our vehicles with the locked axles, where there's no variation in speed between the left wheels and the right wheels while turning, they generally drive very straight. They're very hard to steer. So don't forget to tune in for that video. Should be up on Saturday, I'd say. So if you like this video, make sure and hit the thumbs up, and if you have any comments or suggestions, let me know below the video. My plan here is to maybe make this a kind of a flatbed truck, but with ramps, and put a winch on it so that we can winch vehicles up onto the flatbed. Because I've noticed just a couple of times I've been trying to do kind of recovery videos, we'll say, on the diorama, and I've had no real way of winching anything, so I think it would be a good way to make a kind of a recovery vehicle. Well, that's pretty much it for this video. Any comments, just let me know below the video, and as always, thanks very much for watching.